How's your day going, Kellen?
My day is fantastic. I just had an interview with someone who's putting on a summit for 150,000 people, and I'm really excited to be part of that.
Oh,
I
that's
didn't,
amazing.
I didn't know her, and she was introduced to me by someone,
Mm-hmm.
and I just got finished with that conversation.
That's
Wow.
insane. What's the summit on?
It's what is the name? It's about the woo-woo stuff, finding yourself, creating your power, doing all the good that you're supposed to be doing, living into your true potential, and all the rest of that stuff that we weirdo woo-woo people talk about, but that's
The
also
wolves.
true and real. And I can't remember Grace something or other is her name. I didn't know her until we talked. So
Kellen, the Alchemist, can I ask you, what were you just saying? The woo stuff, the ultimate power? Say that
I'd
again,
say
but
the woo-woo
slowly.
stuff that we
Slowly. So I can
Yeah,
understand
well,
what you said.
it is the woo-woo stuff that we talk about, we all feel, and then some people dismiss as sort of nonsense. The inner power, the life purpose, the real reason we're alive, that feeling, the reason you guys are doing a podcast. Like, I love you guys. I don't even know you, and
Same
I
here,
love you.
brother.
Why? Because you are doing something to add good to the world. You're trying to make a difference. You're doing a thing, the goal of which is, maybe business or whatever, but it is to create optimism, to create hope and add good to the world and that stuff.
Wow. I appreciate that. What a way to start off
Thank you,
2024. That's motivating. That's inspiring
That
right
is.
there.
Well, I love
Thank
you already. Because why? Because you're doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
people who make that their life, I'm going to do stuff to add good to the world. You're cool. I don't care what else you're doing.
As opposed to
We appreciate the compliment. Thank you so much.
We live in a world where too many people are destroying things, trying to tear things down, being negative, being haters, trying to literally destroy. And so
I love it.
People
Yes,
out there
we do.
building, they're heroes in my eyes.
I use the phrase add good to the world. We add carbon dioxide just by breathing. So we make a choice about what else we add to the world. And adding good to the world is what we're happiest when we do. So there you go.
For sure.
So it sounds like, based on the way you were defining all of the things that is going to be mentioned in the summit, it's something that you probably have worked with or are interested in. So why call it woo stuff?
Because lots of people view that. I love it. I had a 30-year career working with engineers in the energy industry, electricity, sort of hardcore, real life stuff. And I'm a woo-woo nutcase. Yay. I'm going to move next summer over to Vancouver Island off the coast of Canada, British Columbia. Wow. Woo-woo Central. I'm going to go there. Yay. We're moving out of Edmonton. So I don't say that in a negative way. I've had all kinds of clients that are doing that, but I like to talk about it sort of funny because I don't, it's the core of our being. Everything else we create here, I don't care how big your pile of money is. When I was a big shot executive, I made a lot of money and I had cars and boats and houses and planes and all that crap. And I also had drug addictions and a miserable life and et cetera, et cetera. And so I've been there, and now I don't do any of that. And I'm way happier adding good to the world and writing books. So
would you say you found your purpose, maybe?
I'm only doing one thing. My year starts October 14th, and there's a whole story about that. Maybe we'll talk about that, and maybe we won't. But October 14th, 2 months ago, to October 14th this year, my commitment is to help 250 million people to discover who they really are and to create from that infinite possibility. Last year, my goal was 50 million, and we reached 75. So this year it's 250. I have no idea how I'm going to do that. I had no idea last year, and we made it. And I only do that morning to night, first breath to last, is try to figure out how to reach and encourage and love and bless people's lives by helping them get rid of the fear, get rid of the self-limiting stuff that says we're not good enough, we're not this, that, and the other, and do the things they feel impressed, called, nudged, pushed to do and be, and use that. So that's all I do.
Yeah.
So yes, I found my purpose, and that's it.
Well, that's an amazing like mission to achieve, and you've gone beyond it. But for most people, they're gonna hear these numbers and they're gonna be a bit skeptical. Like, how is this being done? Like, what is what are the procedures? What are the systems that are put in place to have such an impact on 75 million people, and then
Well,
also
when I
to
started
translate?
October 14th, 2022,
Mm-hmm.
it was funny because the year before that, I was 10 million from
Mm,
October 2021 to October 2022. And near the end of that year in August, I was on somebody's show and we'd been visiting for about an hour.
yeah.
And I told my story and different things and whatever. And at the end, near the end of the show, this guy was emotional. He was in tears and he said, you need a bigger number. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, we've been talking for an hour and you have changed my life. And I'm going to talk to at least 100 people this week. You need a bigger number. So when October came, a month or two later, we set 50 million. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. But in that year, I was on 300 something shows. I have my own podcast with 800 and something episodes. I have an LA talk radio show. I've written 19 books. I speak often on summits. This lady that I just met 2 days ago has now put me on a summit that's going to happen later this month in front of 150,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened is, as last year went along, I started adding up the audiences that I had reached with my own, with the different shows I've been on and everything else, and realized that we had collectively reached an audience of about 75 million people. Now, I never expected to get 50 million emails that say, ooh, you helped me. I wasn't planning on that, and I didn't
Yeah.
know how to measure it. But the best measure I had was the size of the audiences that we've been able to impact and address.
You would say you have a great reach then.
I do.
Yeah.
And you're part of it.
1%. Yes, we are part of it.
You are part of it.
Woo! I love it. And yeah, it's true. The energy you give is the energy that spreads too. So you affect one person and they're affecting 10 people, 100 people, and positivity spreads the same way negativity spreads. And
it does.
Mm-hmm. It's good versus evil.
Ultimately, somehow that's the name of the game.
Why is it, speaking of good versus evil, why is it easier to spread negativity instead of positivity?
I'm not going to pretend I know the answer. I've heard different answers. We were wired for self-protection and caveman, this, that, and the other. I don't know. I think our default is to be selfish, to look out for me, to blame others, to not take responsibility. It seems like, and I'm not passing any judgment, it just seems like that's our default. My own story through decades of depression and addictions and stuff focused on what had happened to me, blaming circumstances and outside things. And because it was easier to do when I blame other stuff outside me for my problems, I don't have to take any responsibility. And it's easy for me to say, well, I can't do anything about it. If, on the other hand, I say, I don't care what happened to me, I get to choose how I react to that, how I interpret it, how I create from that place. So a sentence I love is, given what is, whatever it is, what do I wish to create? That sentence can be true. I can create, it's like the story with the kid and the pile of horse poop. There's got to be a pony in here somewhere. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I can create whatever I want, but that's the part that takes work. And so I think the default is negative. Who put all this crap in here? Instead of there's got to be a pony in there somewhere, because one requires me to work and create, and the other requires me to sit on my butt and blame. And I think that's easier to do.
We're a bit weak, aren't we? Easy for us to complain and
blame. We're what we choose to be. And that's the thing I've discovered. I lived my whole, up till I was 52, until 2007. I was 52 that year. Chasing the buck, chasing money and positions and all that sort of thing, the stuff you're, quote, supposed to do. And I achieved it. But I also struggled with depression. I was raised in a a very structured religious home that used discipline that today would be felony child abuse,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of beatings. And I came out of that believing that I wasn't good enough and I had to prove something and struggling to have my voice heard and to matter. And so I did that in all kinds of unhealthy ways and ultimately ended up with a couple of suicide attempts and in and out of rehab and bad addiction problems, even though I was financially very successful. And, that all happened until I changed it. And then in the process of making that change, that's when I discovered that I had the opportunity to create life like I wanted it. And began from that point to do that. And that's what I help people understand. Doesn't matter where you've been. I'm sure that crappy things have happened to you, me, and everybody and their dog. And we can all sing the song of, I had the worst possible. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here you are today. You're still breathing. We're talking.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to,
Yeah.
what do you want to create?
For sure. A lot of people, when they reach the point of suicidality, is because they think there is no hope. There is nothing worth trying for. So how do you get even past that? Like hearing a story like yours gives people hope that, oh, I might be in a shitty situation right now, but I can make a change. I hope that's what people are hearing from this.
So in August of, shall I tell you the story?
Go for it.
Yeah.
In August of 2007, I was back at the top financially. I was single again for the third time. I'd had 3 failed marriages. I had 4 of my 10 children living with me as a single dad. 3 were grown up and married, and 3 were with my third ex-wife. I was a $3,000 a week cocaine addict, and I was making so much money that didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I had attempted suicide 2 weeks before because I was so in such emotional pain. I came home from work on a Friday night, going to go out and party for the weekend because my favorite phrase was, I just want to be unconscious. And getting high was how to get there. As I got ready to go out to party, I had this urge that I couldn't deny to turn on the television. Now, that doesn't sound like anything, except I picked up the remote and realized I didn't know how to turn it on. I mean, I'd bought the latest, coolest stuff, but it was for the kids and their friends, and I wasn't a TV watcher. So I had to ask one of my kids, how do you turn this on? And my 16-year-old daughter punched some buttons and threw the remote at me, dipweed, and left the room. It landed on a program I'd never heard of, but I'd never heard of any of them because I didn't watch TV. I don't think it's on anymore, but it was a reality show called Intervention.
Mm.
And it's a program about families who stage interventions for busted loved ones. And the protagonist was a high-ranking executive with a cocaine problem. So I watched about 10 minutes of my life on television, and I said,
Wow.
yeah, screw this. I'm not watching this. I turned it off. I went and did some more stuff, and I was ready to go party. And then I just was absolutely compelled to turn the box back on again. So this time I knew how. So I picked up the remote and turned it on, and that program started over. And no, I didn't have a recording thing, and no, it wasn't on the schedule, and no, it can't do that. I get it, but it did. And I'm like, okay, so I watched the program. It went badly. The guy yelled at his family, swore he didn't have a problem, stomped out of the intervention, but it freaked me out. And so instead of going out to party, I went to bed. When I went to bed, I went to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is I went somewhere. It felt out of body. I felt like I was in a theater, dark room, and I could see scenes on the stage. And the scenes were scenes from my life, and they all focused on suffering. The suffering that had been inflicted on me as a kid, abuse and everything, up through the suffering I had inflicted on everybody as an addict and a lousy partner and a rotten dad and a pathological liar and all the stuff that goes with the brokenness that I had. It went on for a long time. And the intensity of viewing that was beyond my ability to describe.
Mm-hmm.
It was such pain. After a long time, a voice said, "It is enough." I woke up and I was completely disoriented because the sun was shining in the windows, and the windows in my room faced west. And I got up and realized it was 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. I'd been somewhere for nearly 18 hours. And I didn't know what to make of all that. But what I knew is I've been invited to change. I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea where to start, what to do. I don't have any idea what to do, but I'm done. So I threw away $1,000 worth of stuff, drugs I had laying around, and I quit cold turkey that day. And that got me sober, but it didn't do anything about how I got there, which was the depression and self-sabotage. And so that was part one. But see, God wasn't done. I went back to work Monday, and in the position I had, I used to get all kinds of free stuff because I made important decisions that affected other companies, sometimes to the tune of millions or even billions of dollars. And so there was lots of let's be nice to Kellen stuff, right? And one of the things I got was a pair of tickets to see a Yo-Yo Ma concert. Now, if you know classical music, you know who that is.
Yeah.
If you don't, you don't. But in the classical world, that's right? They were like $1,000 tickets. Okay. So I'm like, oh man, I'm going. But I don't want to waste this other ticket. I don't have anybody to take. So I asked in the groups that I managed, who likes classical music? And some lady in one of the groups said, well, I do. Have you ever given you anything before? No. I said, okay, fine. See you there. I gave away stuff all the time. So we met at the venue. The concert was amazing. And as of the date of the concert, I'm now 2.5 weeks stone cold sober. Halfway through the show, I had this feeling that I recognized from 2 weeks before come over me. And this voice said in my head, you need to marry this woman. And I said, you're insane. I said, I've screwed that up 3 times before and some other disasters in between. I don't know how to do it. I'm not doing this. Later that night, we were backstage because the reason the tickets are so expensive is they were backstage passes and tickets to the reception and all that stuff. And the voice came back and said, yeah, comma, and you need to tell her tonight. And I thought, this is crazy. This is suicide. I don't know her very well. I know her. She works for me, but I don't know if she has a relationship. I don't know that much about her. And she could call the cops or HR or something, send me to jail, harassment, et cetera, et cetera. So I argued, but you don't win those arguments. So I did. And it went about like you would have expected. Are you insane? And she left. We hadn't come together, so she left. But she didn't call anybody. And she wasn't in a relationship at the time, which I didn't know. And over the next 2 or 3 weeks, she had her own set of experiences. And about 3 weeks after the concert, she resigned her entire career, and I walked away from millions of dollars of contracts. And we walked off into the sunset together. And last month, we celebrated our 16th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
Now, the reason that's important, and this goes to your question about how do you do this, she was literally the person with the soul contract to help me learn how to tell the truth, learn how to be a person, learn how to have a friend, learn how to be a friend, stuff I hadn't learned in 3 marriages in this whole miserable, isolated life I'd lived. And I've asked her 1,000 times, what on earth prompted you to walk away from your entire career and off into the sunset with a drug addict? Because everybody knew. I mean, they didn't know, but they knew, right? And she said, I just knew to the core of my soul it was the right thing to do. Now, despite those 2 events that were connected, we didn't know each other. There was nothing magic. Nothing was healed or fixed in my body or my mind. Those were the invitations. And they were loud and they were 2x4s, but they didn't do the work. I had to go get help. I had to go start seeing counselors. I had to be honest for the first time in my life. I had to do all of the work and be willing to do that. So the event was just a wake-up call. There's an invitation here. It is enough. And so we spent the first 4 years, 3 or 4 years, married, getting to know each other and learning all kinds of stuff. And we both knew how crazy the whole thing was. She knew my history. She knew. Everybody in the office knew. And so, we said to each other, look, we both know this is the right thing to do, but we also both know this is crazy. And so if we're going to do this, then this is ride or die.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. This is ride or die. I said, I'm not doing this again. So that's how we started. But I still had to do all the work. And that took 4 or 5 years of hard work, unraveling the mess of a life that I'd had up till I was 52. And somewhere in that 4 or 5 years, I made a decision that we didn't have any idea what we were going to do for work or for a living or anything. But I made a decision, look, what I know how to do is I know how to help people do hard things, because that's what I'd done as a consultant. And I also know that this process I'm going through of redoing my whole life is valuable. So I decided I want to help. This is what I can offer. Out of my own blood on the floor, I can offer this learning and this path and this teaching and this invitation to anyone. It doesn't matter where you've been, doesn't matter what's going on now. There is a way forward. And so since that time, I've created a coaching practice. I have clients around the world. I've written 19 books. I appear on tons of shows. And like the lady I just talked to, those things just show up out of places. But they show up because I said, I'm doing this. I don't care what's in the way. I don't care. I'm going. Mm-hmm. And so when your listeners look at this and say, how? I can't tell you how. I didn't know how. What I did know was I'm done. That no longer is. I'm going this way, even though I don't know what's next. And that's how this started 16 years ago. And yes, there was a year 1 and a year 2 and a year 3, and it was tiny, and it was struggling, and it was finding things out. And now it's year 16, and it's flipping glorious. But it's 16 years of blood on the floor, commitment, dedication. Yes. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful story, for sure. From what I understand, a lot of the lessons are like taking it one step at a time. There is no solution. It's just that you got to head in a direction that you want to do it and figure it out as you go along and take each challenge as it comes along.
Yeah. If people would do what you just said, they would be able to solve the problems. We have this disease, and the disease is, I want to know the end. I want you to, whoever you are, I want you to promise me that if I go this way, read this book, buy this program, that everything's going to be perfect. It's not going to be that hard, and I won't get smacked around or setback or negative things are going to happen. And I don't know anybody in the universe that gives that promise. God doesn't even structure our lives that way. Our lives are full of challenges and setbacks and fall on your face and everything else. And so, no, there is no will it work. It will work as long as you keep going forward and as long as your commitment is to staying on the path.
Yeah. There was something key that I noticed you mentioning in the beginning of your story was after you watched the program the first time, a voice kind of told you to make a certain decision, which was to ask this woman to marry you. Like after you invited her to the show to the Yo-Yo Ma show. And I wanted to ask a bit more about this voice that you heard. Was it a voice you've heard before when you were throughout your life, or is this like the first time you heard it properly?
So I don't think we all feel nudges. We all feel intuition. We feel inspirations. We feel pushes to do things. The only reason and so it's the same thing we've all heard all the time. The only reason I think that, it is enough and spending 18 hours in hell and, having these sort of dramatic things happened is because I was deaf. Okay. All the rest of the years. And it isn't new. We all feel those things, and you feel them. And what we do
Yeah.
most of the time is ignore them. And we think all the reasons why we can't and it won't work and everything else. And I believe the only reason that they were so loud for me, like that dramatic, is I needed a 2x4 just to wake up, because I had made such a habit for my whole life of ignoring it, making excuses and saying no.
What it seems like is in that moment you became self-aware. Would you say so?
Mm-hmm. But it's a choice.
Yeah.
When we talk about becoming, nobody ever does that to you. We all see and feel what we see and feel, and we get to choose what we make out of that. I mean, I could have woke up after 18 hours and gone and got high. I had $1,000 worth of stuff laying around.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't know what the
That's right.
frick that
Yeah.
was, but let's get stoned. That would have been my first inclination, but I said, no, I'm done. I'm done. I don't know what even I'm done means, but I'm done. And it didn't take away the cravings of the body or the withdrawals, or it didn't, none of that evaporated. But the core of any of your listeners, you, me, the core is a decision. I have declared this is who I'm going to be. I don't know where that road goes, and I don't know what rocks I got to climb over and how much broken glass. Doesn't matter. I'm going there.
It reminds me of a famous quote, I think, therefore I am.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like just listening to your inner voice and then acting on it, just making
Mm-hmm.
the decision based on what your individuality wants. Like, you as a human being, as an individual, you have your own decisions to be made, and decisions that should not be influenced by anyone else.
That
So
statement right there is one of the most precious things. So I want your listeners to listen to you. Each one of
yeah,
us,
like
you're sovereign. You design your life.
Mm-hmm.
And you do it either by abdication, because you give that authority to somebody else, their opinions, their thoughts, they're telling you what you should do, or you do it yourself. And that doesn't mean you ignore everybody. You can hear them, but you decide. And most of us decide accidentally. We abdicate. We allow the externalities to shape us. And this, your words and my story, that's an invitation to take control of your own life and create it.
And I assume that has something to do with the inner power. You know, generally when I hear of power, I hear of, oh, my computer has low power, or someone has a lot of money and power. But I mean, inner power. You know, when people are sad, they feel helpless, like they have no power. You know, so how do you even cultivate an inner power to begin with if you have
Well,
none?
you know, we if we had collaborated ahead of time and created a set of questions and conversation, we couldn't have done any better. So there are two things.
Let's go.
there are two things that I have done in the last 16 years that are more important than anything else. Number one is to create a living document. And I say living because I change pieces of it all the time. And it's a document that I created that needs no one's approval. It needs no one's permission, but it is a set of declarations that I have made to the Creator, to the universe, to God. I am this because I say so. And they contain statements like, I am love and pour over your soul like warm sunshine. I am forgiveness, holding no judgment, anger, or loathing toward anyone for anything, including myself. I am that I live to act as an instrument in divine hands with no need for glory or fear of embarrassment. You know, those are statements that I don't share. I don't like, but they're part of my own personal manifesto. I call it a PTAC, personal truth and commitment. And it has lots of stuff in it. and I have it memorized and I love it and I use it, da, da, da. So the creation of that kind of thing, and it's difficult at first because the minute you start thinking in those kinds of expansive terms, then all this crap, I'm not that, I'm not good enough, I can't say that. How would I dare say such a thing? Well, there are two kinds of statements. One is factual statements, and the second are aspirational statements. The first set, factual statements, like I'm a son of God. There's nothing I can do to change that. I am. So are you. We were created. We're not accidents. We're here. Okay. But reminding myself of that truth in a powerful way changes how I think about me. It changes what I choose to say. It changes how I choose to look at everybody and what I choose to want and pursue. If I don't care who I am and it doesn't matter, then I do a set of different things in my life and did. When I remind myself, I'm a son of God. Holy crap, then I'm not going to say that or do that. I'm going to, so that's factual statements. And another set is aspirational. So I have a statement in it that says, I am my word. I speak only truth. I do what I say. I am who I seem, with no camouflage, duplicity, or guile.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's aspirational because I'm not perfect. But I put those in there anyway, and that's where this feeling can come. How dare I say that? Okay, I'm a jerkwad. I tell the truth only a third of the time, and who cares? I don't want to say that. So deciding what you aspire to and saying it in a powerful, declarative way, even if you're not there, we're all becoming. So one of my statements is, I am that when I fall or fail in any of my declarations, I get up, fess up, clean it up, and recommit. So the creation of that kind of a thing is the first thing. The second thing is actually more important, and that is because it is to create a daily process where I make those declarations the truth of my being. Mm-hmm. Which means I memorize it. I say it every morning. It's open on my computer screen. Anytime I'm feeling anything, I look at it and read it out loud until I weep. And then I'm ready to go again. Mm-hmm. It's what I have said. I start the day. I end the day. It guides who I am. And here's the cool thing. I get to create it. I don't need anybody's permission. I don't need anybody's agreement. Nobody's got to say, ooh, you can't say that, or you can. I don't care. It's this process of self-creation, consistent with both what you know to be true and what you aspire to be. So those two things, creating that kind of a document and a daily process to make it the truth of your life. That's where my 19 books have come from. That's where my coaching program comes from. I have 88 songs on Spotify. I speak on all kinds of places all the time, and I do it in the same place of power, and it comes from that.
It sounds like on the second point mainly, you took out the effect and the influence of the negative environment you grew up in out of you separated it from your life, and then in doing so started creating your own positive environment to influence you. And I commend you for that, because you're aware of all the negative influences it was having and were able to isolate it and remove it from your life, and then applying a new lifestyle which just promoted your whole outlook on your life.
I'm often asked in these kind of conversations, well, you've had all this stuff happen to you. What would you change? If you could change one thing, this messy stuff. Like I have 10 kids. Because of the drugs and the divorces and stuff, some of my kids still don't talk to me. Yeah. And that used to weigh on me, and I used to hate myself for that. And some of them blame me for everything that's bad in their life. You ruined my life, blah, 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 blah. That used to just wreck my life. If I'd only done this, et cetera, et cetera. That's why the statement on forgiveness is in there. I am forgiveness. I hold no judgment, anger, or loathing toward anyone for anything, including myself. which allows me to let them live their own lives. It also gives me power, and the power is I know, like I breathe air, that there will come a day. I know that. And so I don't need to live in pain, wishing or wondering this, that, the other. I simply know there will come a day. And so the answer when people say, what would you change, is I wouldn't change a thing. Because even though those things all happened to me, and I did things that hurt other people, it has shaped. I wouldn't be able to say the things I say now and have the power that I have if they hadn't happened. And so one little piece of my document is a thing, and I wrote it in medieval script, and it's like some dude reading a scroll on a castle wall, right? And the name of it is The Scroll of Truth and Power. And the first part goes like this: Stave the first. Guided and nurtured by God through the valley of death, and refined in fires of abuse, addiction, depression, and self-loathing, I am become alchemy, lover of people, healer of souls, magnifier of prosperity. And I declare that I share it with you, but I don't say it for anybody else to approve or agree with or laugh at or do whatever they're going to do. I don't even care. That's who I am. And I treasure every piece of it. I make no excuses for any of it. I fixed all that I can. And the best that I can do now is to go forward and add good to the world.
I want to ask you something about forgiveness and not judging others. It's a wonderful thought. I think it's a beautiful thing. And philosophically, I like the idea of forgiveness. But sometimes it's just hard on a day-to-day basis to forgive someone that's wronged you,
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get from that point of, how do you get past that,
Well, I had a horrible and difficult time. And then I decided I was going to write the book called Forgiveness, to talk about how I learned to do it and how the processes and things. Because here's what happens, my friend. If I carry hatred toward someone that hurt me badly, even if they abused me or did whatever, all that it does is it limits my ability to serve you here right now in this podcast. Because I'm carrying that weight of negative feeling, negative stuff, the desire to punish or lash or whatever. If I carry self-loathing or hatred toward me because of all the mistakes that I've made after I've done the best that I can to fix stuff, I'm not saying pretend anything away. Do the best that you can do with it. But most of the stuff that really matters, you can't fix anyway. You can't fix it. Doesn't matter how much you apologize or money, that none of it actually fixes it. So forgiveness is a process. It's hard. The subtitle is A Journey of Courage to a Place of Freedom and Power. And it's worth the effort, because what it does is it frees you. I live here, literally, I am forgiveness. I hold no judgment, anger, or loathing toward anybody for anything, including myself. And what that does is it makes me, at this moment here, free. It doesn't pretend away any problems. It doesn't do any of that. But I carry no baggage at this moment at all. And then I'm free. All the weight that I could be carrying around, either anger at someone else or at myself, hatred toward myself, it's gone. It's gone. I have a story I'll tell you about a dog. I wasn't a dog person. When my wife, I didn't tell you the most fun part. You know what the most fun part? You know what my wife's name is?
What?
Joy. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like you can't make this stuff up, right?
So,
and her birthday is October 14th, which is why my year starts October 14th.
I see.
So we got a dog in 2007, and she'd never had a dog, and I never had a dog. She was a cat person, and I never had animals. So it was a pup, and we sort of inherited it because my son had it, and then he broke up with his girlfriend and didn't have anywhere to put it, and so we had a dog. And it was New Year's Eve on 2007, right after 2 or 3 months after that set of events happened. And I was roughhousing with the dog, and the dog bumped into a speaker stand, and the speaker fell off the stand and landed on the dog's foot. Broke all the metatarsals, and the dog was howling. And on New Year's Eve, in the middle of the night, we had to go find an emergency vet, which we did, and they did surgery and did all they could to fix it. But they told us, we don't know how this is going to heal over time, do this, that, and the other, but later the dog may develop a limp. Sure enough, later in life, the dog developed a limp. Now, the dog's gone now, but here's the thing. That dog had a limp for the rest of his life because of my carelessness on New Year's Eve, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
But the dog wasn't having any of it. The dog did all that it could, ran around, jumped all of his life, everything. And when it limped because it ran around too much, then it dealt with that. That's what I'm talking about. Even though I might have a limp of some kind or other in my life because of abuse or other things that happened to me, I get to choose, like the dog, whether that affects the way I live or not.
Mm.
And that lesson, that's written on my forehead in fire. He wasn't having any of it. He lived a full, rich, joyful life and limped.
Mm-hmm.
And who cares? And you know what I mean, because dogs do that, right?
Yeah.
For
Okay.
sure.
I think
There's
Dogs
the lesson.
love you no matter what, like even if you hurt them, they might still love you, And
Yeah,
they
well,
still
it was an
want your
accident, but
affection. Yes.
yeah, but that was the lesson for me.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 years later, the dog breed should have lived to 12 or 13, but 10 years later, after had a great impression and taught me all this stuff, then one day he just had a heart attack and died and left. And we had his ashes, had him cremated and have his little ashes. And they asked, well, what do you want to write on there? And his name was Aiden, A-D-E-N. And then I hadn't even thought about it. And so at that moment, when she asked me, I said, Aiden, the simple soul who saved me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because he taught me what that meant.
So how do you it's getting I want to ask you about how do you see you can still live a beautiful life, but the traumas of what happened to you, those are in your head, And I think as human beings, we're so smart, we're so cautious and scared that we always remember those memories of the things that hurt us in the past.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get past all that?
I have a piece of brilliant. I do absolutely. I'm past it, and I tell you without hesitation, it's possible. Mm-hmm. Period. Two things. Here's $1 billion. This is something I give my clients, and it's $1 billion secret. Mm-hmm. You want $1 billion secret?
Yes, please.
Notice and choose. With that little notice and choose, you can learn to do anything in the world. So if you notice that you're being angry right now, why am I angry? I'm angry because so-and-so did such and such, and it limits me in this way. Okay, fine. Given what is, like they're not doing anything right this minute, that situation is whenever it was, wherever it was. What do I choose to do now? Do I choose to still be limited? Do I choose to still carry anger? Anger is just a concoction of neurotransmitters. Okay, neurotransmitters in our bloodstream. I don't like that collection of neurotransmitters. I don't like the way it makes my body feel. I don't like the way it clouds my judgment. I don't like the way I can't think. I lose my creativity. I don't like that. So I'm going to choose to do whatever I need to. So I've developed habits of meditation and other kinds of things, intentional processes to let those things process. I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I can't change what they did, and I can't change the fact that I got a limp. I don't care. Given this limp, what do I wish to create? Well, I'm going to sit around and bitch the rest of my life because I could have been a contender if I didn't have this limp. Okay, well, then I'm going to die. bitching, saying, I could have been a contender. I'm not doing that. I refuse. Forgiveness is simply a choice to no longer allow events of the past to have power in the present.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conscious choice. It doesn't mean you're sweeping it under the rug. It doesn't mean so-and-so doesn't deserve whatever consequences. There's legal things for some things, and then there's karma for others. I don't control those levers. It's not my business to run around and try to extract justice. Besides that, we don't even know what it is. You hear people say, they should be tarred and feathered and shot and pissed on and burned at the stake. Well, that's some kind of an emotional reaction based on whatever. But we have no idea what justice is. I am so grateful it's not mine to decide. Oh, I am so grateful. Karma, God, you worry about that. Not my stuff. And if there's things that involve the legal system, depends on what happened. That's not my stuff either. It is what that is, but fine. I'm going to live creating all the good that I can. And yeah, if a person's a whack job, I don't go be around a whack job. But I don't have to create hate and negativity in me, which is baggage I'm carrying because so-and-so's a dirtbag. I don't need to do that. In fact, I refuse to do that. Because then I continue to give dirtbag power to put rocks in my backpack. I'm not doing it. So it's work. I'm not pretending it's easy, and that's why I wrote the book. This is what I needed to do and write and see, and I thought, gee, I should share that. So I did.
Wow.
That's amazing.
What do you think, Saeed?
I'm processing. It's quite a lot of information to absorb, but I resonate with everything you're saying. And there was a question I was thinking of before meeting you as well about what, like, the things that you're talking about really revolve around, from what I'm understanding, is like the self and the individuality of a person, and just learning about your inner voice and listening to yourself, because that's how you kind of learn all these lessons. You notice all of these push and pulls that you have in your life that they will take you on a certain path, and going on that path, you will, in a way, discover yourself. That's what I'm understanding, that you've discovered yourself through all the lessons that you've paid attention to. And paying attention is like the main concept, which leads to being self-aware. And in that sense, something that I've been kind of analyzing was the different remedies that the East and the West provide us when it comes to medicine and like holistic experiences, mainly involving like the subconscious and the unconscious, the conscious and the unconscious, and how I feel like nowadays the West, this is actually, I'm paraphrasing what there's a psychiatrist who goes by the name of Dr. K. He's also a streamer, and he posts a lot of videos on YouTube trying to share his knowledge. He was on a podcast where he was saying that the West nowadays validates what the East already know, because the East have been studying the self for thousands of years, while the West uses general analytics. Like they take what has worked and then they apply it to the general public, because most of the studies are usually used up on like 1,000, 10,000 test subjects, and then they're like, okay, this worked on this group, so it should work on everyone else. While the East focuses on the individual, just like this person is every person is different, every person is unique. And I feel like when we become self-aware, we start understanding that concept a bit more, because we understand that even if we listen to what the other person is saying, that is saying they're saying something that this is a remedy, or this is a process that you should take that will be good for you. In reality, it might not actually be good for you, because
Mhm.
you kind of have to figure out what is good for you, what works for you, how you want
Mhm.
to live your life.
Mhm.
And that's why even if you look at Western statistics, it's like medication is not 100% effective. There's a reason
Mhm.
for that.
Way less than 100%, dude.
Exactly. Like
Yes.
no, nothing is 100%.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I couldn't agree. There's no one size fits all, and I couldn't agree more that you are sovereign. You will create. Like we came into this world with nothing, and we're going to leave with nothing. The only thing we're going to take with us is what we've made out of ourselves.
Yeah.
That's it. What we've made out of our character, the choices that we've made that are written in our hearts and on our souls and on the walls of our being. That's it. It's all you're taking with you, and all the rest of it doesn't amount to anything.
You know, it's the patience and the serenity that people should enjoy, so that they can actually be able to listen to themselves a bit more. Like, for going on the example of your story, when you stopped using cocaine for a short period of time, just enough time for you to actually listen to yourself. It had a whole, like, it gave you a revelation basically that changed the the rest of your life. And
Mhm.
I feel that is something that most people avoid, because they're afraid of confrontation or something. They're afraid of something, and it's all related to listening to their inner voice. Maybe people are just afraid to confront their inner voice, have a conversation with it. And in my opinion, it is vital to have a conversation with your inner voice. It might Most people will see it as like, oh, this person is crazy. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, are you talking to yourself? It's like, in essence, yes, but at the same time, you kind of have to talk to yourself so that you can find a way to motivate yourself, encourage yourself, love yourself, and then end up doing the right thing that will make you successful in life. And when I say successful, it doesn't mean like, oh, you have to be wealthy or you have to be rich. It's like successful in your own terms. Like everyone has their
Mhm.
own definition of success. So you once you discover that for yourself, you feel lighter, you feel cleaner, you feel healthier. It's just
Well, it's
it
because
puts
you
you on
are.
a yeah.
I have a saying that I created at the beginning of COVID. And, we were at the very beginning, we had lockdowns and people were chasing the John Hopkins site and see how many cases and how many dead people and, all that stuff in those first
Mhm.
months, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I created a name of a disease, and it's WITOT, the Witot fungus. And I always said, starting then, now 4 years ago, the Witot fungus kills more people than COVID ever will. And WITOT is an acronym, and it stands for What I Think Others Think.
Mm.
And so we are so infected with the idea that what other people think either makes decisions or should or influences or whatever. I mean, you're allowed to do whatever you want with that, but the control that we give over ourselves, the amount we abdicate the self-creation that we are supposed to do, that we're doing, whether we mean to or not, because of what we imagine that people are thinking about what we did or didn't do or did or didn't say. And so, yeah, that's the thing I always say. Yeah, Witot, you're infected with the Witot fungus. You know, you're worried about what others think or say or don't think or say. And the funny part is you don't know most of the time. You make all that whole drama up in your head.
Yeah, that is very true.
So having a conversation with yourself doesn't seem crazy at all to me. You're busy doing it when you're assuming what other people think and believe about you. Hello. So yeah.
Yeah. Witot. I like that name. It sounds like it sounds similar to. It reminds me of Funyuns. I don't know why. It's like
Well, anyway, the Witot fungus,
The mind virus, for sure.
the mind virus.
Hmm. Wow.
Ali, what do you think about this fungus? Does it has it ever plagued you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, especially when I was younger, I used to be a lot more caring about what others think about me, about what I'm doing, or how I'm perceived and such. But all those thoughts, they're just thoughts in your head, and you can toss them like this, and they're gone. And then you just get to build and create and be happy. You're so optimistic, man. How do you get to that point? How do you what's do you ever have negative thoughts still, or is it just you're just riding on a ball of flames?
I create myself every day, my
Mhm.
friend. The two things that I said, I literally wake up before I wake with the words of my declaration in my lips and in my mind. I create myself every day on purpose, with intention, with the goal of my 250 million in mind. And my whole focus is that. And that's by choice. I don't need anyone's permission as to who I am or what I do. And so I create myself every day, and I choose to be full of love, optimism, positivity, creation. I've lived in the other world where I was full of a lot of other things.
Mhm.
I don't like it. So I create myself on purpose the way I enjoy. And my mission, like my business plan is really simple. It's on the wall, and it says, I never look for clients. I look for people to love, opportunities to serve, and problems to solve.
Mhm. Wow.
And so that's what I said in the very beginning. I can come in this conversation and I can say, without even thinking about it, I love you guys. You're busy doing good. You're trying to make a difference. And I mean that with every ounce of my being. And I don't even have to think about it. And I really enjoy living life with that kind of a creation instead of some other way, which I've tried them all. It's not like I don't understand how that other crap works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And
that's it. I create it on purpose, intentionally, every day.
and if people want to find out more about your books, your podcasts, your radio work, how can people learn more?
Well, when you have a name like Kellen Flukiger, you can't hide. So I have my website, kellenflukiger.com. I have Your Ultimate Life. There's a podcast. Your Ultimate Life is an LA Talk Radio live video show out of LA. All my books are on Amazon. I'm on social. I can't hide. So when you Helen Flukiger, I can't hide, right? So if you want to find out more, I encourage you. The website that's on there, yourultimatelife.ca. There's some free stuff there. 5 keys to create your ultimate life. Like if you're serious about doing something different, Einstein's supposed to have said, if you do the same thing, expect a different result, you're insane. Well, okay. So if you want a different life, if you want more happiness or more money or more joy in your relationships, then you got to do something different. Yes, it's possible for you to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy, but it isn't going to come in an Amazon box. You got to go build it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, my name, look me up anywhere you like.
Said.
Guys, first of all, thank you so much for being on the pod with us, man. Like, this is a great way for us to start the year. This level of positivity is like, how can we, like, this is probably, if I was thinking of destiny, this was kind of meant to be for us. It's kind of the fresh start that we need for 2024. It's
For sure.
giving us an outlook to, it's giving us something to look forward to for this year, because this is the first episode of the year and this is how it started off. So Thank you
Look,
so
you
much for
guys,
coming on.
you're welcome. If I can do something to serve you, let me know. Like, go add good to the world, not because somebody pats you on the head, but because that's who you said you are.
That's very true.
We have a show. Our goal is to do this thing. We're going to reach 10,000 downloads a minute or a month or 1 million downloads, or we're going to have guests that, this is who we are. Why? Because we said so.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are who you decide you are.
Hell yeah.
So you're welcome.
Exactly.
I love it. I love you. Now go do good stuff.
We love you
Same
too,
here,
man.
brother.
Love
We
you
love
too.
you too.
Thank you so much. And well, guys, you know how we end the show. Salute and to cover the camera, and peace.